After being found guilty this week, another Democrat official is freaking out, refusing to accept responsibility, and claiming that she is actually the victim. A corrupt Democrat official has been found guilty after being accused of stealing from underprivileged children nearly $1 million in state funds intended for youth program funds. June Hamilton Dean, Wednesday afternoon, surrendered at the St. Clair County Jail to be processed for the felony loan fraud charge. A handful of these charges with the youth program were dropped, but June Hamilton Dean was found guilty on these other charges, and her brother, Oliver Hamilton, is already in prison. 2017 article includes a picture of Hamilton and says a federal judge quintupled the prison sentence that prosecutors and lawyers for a local Democrat official had once recommended, citing his theft of money from the poorest of the poor and a long history of corruption in the area. The former East St. Louis Township Supervisor, Oliver W. Hamilton, stole from the weakest and spent the money on plane tickets to Las Vegas. Another recent development involves the current East St. Louis mayor, who has been heavily criticized for hiring June Hamilton Dean after she was charged with these two felonies. She still, despite this, received this job from the mayor. Interesting that in his very short time as mayor, already Robert Eastern III, East St. Louis mayor, this Democrat, has already drawn controversy, including right on the beginning night of his election, during the election night victory party. It's now come out that Democrats actually did not pay the township for their election night party. There's a picture of the mayor here who had to defend this, saying that it was a mistake that they somehow didn't pay the town. Democrats attempted to excuse their so-called mistake, saying, quote, "I would call it oversight. It was certainly not intended for the Democrat organization to not make the payment. It was intended to be a paid-for event. It was certainly not a donation from the township to the Democrat organization," they claim. In the last couple of days, Mayor Eastern was again asked about this very controversial hire of June Hamilton Dean. He abruptly ended the interview. This article just from last week says East St. Louis is as much as $5 million in the hole. The city recently had to lay off firefighters and shut down a firehouse. Despite the dire financial situation, the city hired ex-councilwoman June Hamilton Dean to be head of its development agency, even though she's about to go on trial for a felony. She's accused of forgery. Prosecutors allege it was in connection with her job at the East St. Louis Township. The You Paid For It team questioned East St. Louis Mayor Robert Eastern about hiring Hamilton Dean. Mayor Eastern refused to answer investigators about any questions regarding the hire and ultimately ended the interview. They note that Hamilton Dean has been set to go on trial October 21st. We now know that she was found guilty, so we are waiting on the sentencing date. It's likely that the mayor will have to give some kind of answers in the next few days, though, now that June Hamilton Dean has been found guilty. Another new article talking about June Hamilton Dean finally being found guilty for this felony forgery. Article reads, June Hamilton Dean, the East St. Louis Community Development Director and former city councilman, was found guilty on one count each of forgery and public contractor misconduct in St. Clair County Circuit Court on Tuesday. Hamilton Dean, 56 years old, was charged with knowingly making a false document, allegedly a false letter of employment for another person, with the intent to defraud. Jury selection was completed Monday. Testimony and arguments were Tuesday. The jury deliberated less than 1 hour before reaching a verdict. They note that both counts are Class 3 felonies that carry possible sentences of either 30 months probation or prison terms of 2 to 5 years. Hamilton Dean may also be ordered to pay restitution of up to $25,000. Sentencing date is scheduled for December 17th. Even though she has been found guilty, June Hamilton Dean still, it seems, is claiming that she did not do anything wrong. She said, quote, "I still maintain my innocence and have maintained my innocence from the beginning." That's what she said outside the courtroom after the verdict. Hamilton Dean was among 7 Metro East public officials, which included her brother, Oliver Hamilton, who were arrested in December of 2016 on corruption charges. June's brother, Oliver Hamilton, had already been sentenced to 5 years in federal prison for wire fraud for making more than $230,000 in, quote, questionable purchases on a township-issued American Express card while he was East St. Louis Township supervisor. Among the purchases were these trips to Las Vegas, supplies for his business, gasoline for his personal truck, car washes, donations, and gifts to friends. The discovery of the credit card purchases were part of a local news investigation. Still, June Hamilton Dean acting defiant even after the verdict, saying that she did not do anything wrong and, quote, "this is politically motivated." That's what Hamilton Dean is trying to claim. Tuesday, she said, "They are punishing me for my brother. This is the classic example of voter intimidation. It's classic harassment and malicious prosecution motivated by corrupt individuals who use the justice system to settle the score." 2 additional counts of loan fraud against Hamilton Dean filed in 2017 relating to funds borrowed for this township youth program were dropped. In July, East St. Louis City Manager Brooke Smith hired Hamilton Dean as the Community Development Director without a vote of the City Council at a salary of $73,000 per year. The department has an annual budget of about $12 million. Also, East St. Louis Mayor Robert Eastern has had to defend the hiring of Hamilton Dean even after these felony charges, has tried to justify this, citing her more than 30 years of work for the Defense Department, including as a lead financial analyst and acting branch chief. He said in July that he would monitor her legal issues and, if warranted, reevaluate the position at that time. And just again, going back to June Hamilton's brother, Oliver Hamilton, who still is serving his prison sentence. The judge wrote back during Oliver Hamilton's sentencing that his crime was more serious than the federal sentencing guidelines would suggest. He called Hamilton's misuse of township funds staggering, saying that he began stealing within months of being sworn in and kept at it for more than 5 years. The judge wrote that it appears that Hamilton bought supplies for his construction business with public money. Hamilton looted the township as it plunged ever deeper into debt. Reagan also cited the long history of political corruption in the area, as he has in previous political corruption cases. He said, quote, "The court intends to send a clear message that public corruption will not be tolerated. It is corrosive and will not end without harsh sentences for officials who scorn the woes of the people they are called to serve." But Hamilton, 63 years old, faced an even stiffer punishment for an email asking supporters to show up at his sentencing hearing and saying that he thought the judge would be swayed by a newspaper's lies and a Belleville political party. That email caused Hamilton to lose credit for accepting responsibility for his crime. Smith pulled out of the 2-year recommendation and instead suggested 30 months. So given how June Hamilton Dean has responded to the guilty verdict, wondering if this could also be a factor in the upcoming sentencing as well. The fact that it looks like she also is not accepting responsibility even after being found guilty like her brother. Will that be a factor in the sentencing? Let me know what you think about this case so far in general. If you could leave a like on this video, that is greatly appreciated, and make sure that you are subscribed to the channel. Thanks everybody that has been sharing the channel and helping share the videos to help get the information out there. In the video description are links to my Patreon and PayPal accounts where you can support the channel directly. Patreon.com/realityreader and PayPal.me/realityreader. Both links in the description. I'll follow up soon. Thanks everyone.